9% of men struggle with controlling their sexual urges. In this video, we're going to identify the 5 areas where temptation is the strongest, and I'll share with you 2 powerful techniques you can use starting today to reprogram your mind. I guarantee you, after watching this, you'll be on the path to joining the elite club of the 1% of men who know how to defeat lust. Let us start with the first temptation trigger spot. I'm going to reference my context notes just to make sure that I'm not missing any areas and the important points that we need to identify so that we can be stronger, or you can be stronger when you're in these spaces. Let's start with number 5. Number 5 is the church. The reason why number 5 is the church is because oftentimes single women are in the church and they're looking for a husband, right? They want to live right in the eyes of God. They don't want to be just shacking up with men. But the problem is that the men in the church are having these struggles with their flesh. How many times have you seen examples of leaders of these large churches and even small churches that lead to scandal because the heads of the churches, these men, prominent men, are sleeping and having relationships with the women that they lead, with the women in their congregation? Those women are single. Some of the men, pastors, are having relations with other married women. And I say to you, if you're in church, stick to the mission of building a relationship with God. Let that be your sole focus so you don't fall into this group of men who struggle in that particular area. If you know you do, then begin to reprogram what your motives are when you're in the church. The 4th temptation spot is the beach. Now, I was recently at the beach on vacation for my wife's birthday. And what I noticed is it's hard not to notice when women are practically in their birthday suits. They're wearing one-piece bikinis, two-piece bikinis, string bikinis, that you can see all the curves. And for men, we are visually stimulated. So this is a place where temptation draws up. Now, you may not act on anything when you're at the beach. You may not try to get a number. Maybe you're not in a relationship, and that's all well and good. But if you are struggling with the flesh and struggling with lust, and when you're in another spot, when you've moved away from that, you're going to remember those images, and you may turn to other vices to satisfy your fantasies. But when you go to the beach, just know that there is going to be women there, as I'm sure you know, because if you've been to the beach anytime recently, that there's visual stimulation there. So just be on alert when you are out with your family or even by yourself or with the guys, and you know that there's going to be this temptation here to draw you in. The 3rd spot is the job. I mean, let's be honest. We spend most of our days with our work colleagues, and there are some attractive women on the job. And what does often happen is there's a high statistic that speaks to the affairs that take place because people are curious, right? And sometimes those curiosities lead to conversations. It builds up the attraction, and then one thing leads to another. Now, if you're not in a committed relationship, you're not married, you don't have a partner, and the woman doesn't have a partner, she's not married, then by all means, but make sure that you're not impacting where you earn your living because you're being defeated by the flesh. And as a man, you can become a part of the water cooler conversation among women. Now, you may be okay with that, but you just don't want to put yourself into any type of situation where you earn or begin to get a reputation. But the job is certainly somewhere where men struggle with lust because of the many options that are there. Trigger spot number 2 on the list is the gym. Now, the gym is the one place where everyone is working on themselves, but it's also a place that is of high sexual tension and suggestion. I'm going to give you an example. I was in the gym a few years back when I was going regularly. I was stretching just before beginning my workout, and this was in an area that was wide open. And a young lady comes, she grabs a mat, and she begins stretching directly in front of me in one of these suggestive postures. Now, I didn't give into it, and I wasn't at that time on a journey that I've been on as far as like controlling temptation and lust and things of that nature. But I certainly noticed it, and many men are facing those type of temptations when they're in the gym. And this is another place where there's a high level of infidelity happening because of the high sexual tension in the gym. And let's just say what it is. You have women over there that are in form-fitting clothing, they're in tights, and they're in uh, tight shorts. And it's hard not to notice the curves of the women that are there. So just be on alert. Again, this is another trigger spot area where men struggle, where if you're someone who you want to overcome the flesh and not be ruled by it, begin to put that armor on when you're working out. And again, this is a place where just stick to the mission to keep yourself out of trouble. Number one on the list is the web, the World Wide Web, the internet. There used to be a time when people had to work to go and search for adult content. You don't have to work anymore. You know that it's readily available on your phone. You can go to a free pornographic website. You can go right on social media. Social media is ripe with suggestive material, and it's like that for a specific reason. That's to keep you going back, so you can get you get the hits of dopamine, and it takes you back to the internet. It takes you back to the social media, so you can entertain that lust that keeps drawing up. It's just like it's very difficult, and it's a challenge to overcome that because of how easily you can access it. We all have our phones in our hands. I remember when I was trapped in lust, all I had to do is grab my phone. It was just that simple because it's right there. And all the material and the programming around us is specifically for that. It's to draw us in. So we keep going back to those trigger spots. So those are the 5 trigger spots. And now, as promised, I'm going to tell you 2 things that I've done that have been extremely helpful for me as I've continued to move away from and the victory of overcoming lust. Now, bear with me because you might not think number 1 is this first technique that I'm going to give you, that it's not going to be helpful, but if you stick with it, it can completely change your life. And that is this. When you are watching television, if you are a television watcher, or even when you're watching something on social media, if you see a woman that draws your attention, put your eyes directly on her eyes. Do not peruse her body if you can see it with your eyes. Try to do this every time you see a woman that you find attractive. In fact, you can do it with every person you see attractive, or you can just do it with anyone that you see on the television. Again, if you're someone who watches television, it is powerful. The one thing that it's going to do, I can tell you for sure, is this going to build up your level of self-confidence. It's also going to help you when you feel the pull to check a woman out. As an example, let's say you're in the gym with a woman and she's attractive, or you're at the job and there's an attractive woman and you see coming your way. Now, what you may do today is wait for that woman to pass by so you can take a look at her. Trust me, I've been there. As you begin to do this practice more, just looking directly into the eyes of attractive women you see on television, you're going to do that less and less. So what that is you begin to rule the mind instead of letting the mind rule you and the impulses rule you. Try it out and see how it works. The second technique that I'm going to give you is going to be a little bit more difficult, and that's this. If you're in a relationship, or if you're someone and you're having relations with women, you're having sex with women, I am going to encourage you to not release or ejaculate every time you have sex. Now, bear with me on this. I am not the champion of semen retention, which is very popular. What I am is I am a proponent of self-mastery, because as men, when we release, that is the super supplement. There is no multivitamin that anyone can take that's more powerful than a man's semen. It creates life. So 3 things happen for us when we release. We lose our erection, we lose our energy, and we lose our sexual drive, because you have what is called a refractionary period. That's the time from which you released your seed until the time your body resets itself and it can have sex again. Some men, it takes longer than others. But trust me, by doing this, you will become a 1% man, because 99% of men, when they have sex with a woman, the sex ends when they ejaculate, when they reduce, or when they release their seed. So if you're going to, or when you have sexual relations, let's say you go 5 times, you're having sex in a week. Good for you. You want to only release 2 of those times, because as men, society says that a man should be strong and should be hard. And literally, once a man ejaculates, he is neither one of those things. So try those 2 things out. One, doing the eye contact. You can even practice in the mirror. And two, abstaining from releasing every time you have sex. And you're going to gain so much energy back. And then you're going to build up this amazing self-mastery discipline that most men just don't have, because they allow sexual temptation to defeat them. What I want you to do now at this point, I want you to think about what it is. What are the struggles you've had in these places? Has it been one? Has it been multiple? What are you doing about them? What do you think will help you? If this video has been of any value, please comment, like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, God bless you. Own your mind, own your money, and always own the keys to the bank.